and welcome. Tonight, Mudashiru Obasa shows up at the Lagos State House of Assembly complex, says he has resumed and remained Speaker of the Assembly. The chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal and Tax Reforms, Mr. Taiwo Yedele, says the inheritance tax contained in the Nigeria tax bills is not a new provision as it exists in tax laws since independence. Senate President Godswill Akpabio appeals for urgent reforms in the nation's healthcare system. And U.S. President Donald Trump hosts UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer at the White House for critical talks on Ukraine.
On business news tonight, federal government, states and local governments share about 1.7 trillion naira as revenue for January.
On sports, Egypt's Omar Assar dethrones Nigeria's Quadri Aruna to win the 2025 IWTF African Cup in Tunisia, with both players securing tickets for the World Cup in Macau, China.
From the nation's capital, FCT Internal Revenue Service begins penalty enforcement of 500,000 naira to employers of labor who fail to submit their employees' annual tax returns for the year 2024.
We begin tonight in Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos State, where the leadership crisis in the State House of Assembly took yet another turn today, with the impeached Speaker returning to the Assembly, laying claim to the coveted seat in spite of his ouster by members of the House. Honorable Obasa, member representing Agege constituency, made his way back to the House, ably backed by security operatives and supporters, returned to the House for the first time after being impeached as Speaker on January the 13th, 2025. His message was simple, short, but insistent. He has resumed and he remains Speaker of the House.
Even as most knew that he would eventually show up, Mr. Obasa's presence at the Assembly complex took not a few by surprise. Fortified with a retinue of security operatives, he makes his first appearance since his removal on January 13, 2025, over alleged financial misconduct and abuse of office. He isn't alone. His support base throng the gate leading to the Assembly, insisting that his mandate persists. The lawmaker representing Agege Constituency 1 is adamant. He has resumed and remains Speaker of the House.
I've never been removed. There's nothing like impeachments. So I don't know what you are saying. I've said this openly. That everybody, remove, what is it called? Impeachment or whatever, or removing is all democratic and constitutional. But in doing that, to achieve that, you must follow the due process. Nobody is against. I'm not against being removed. If I do that, then I'm not democratic. But all we are saying, let us go through the normal process and achieve that. So if we do, fine.
The clerk of the House, who was removed alongside Mr. Obasa, sings from the same hymn sheet, saying the House held its plenary led by Mr. Obasa with his supporters.
I also see Mr. Speaker resume duty today, and we've sat. Yes, I've sat and I've joined the Senate. In my own case, I resumed office yesterday, following the order of the court. And I just want to assure everybody that the House of Assembly, we pride ourselves as one family. There is no rancor. And sometimes within the family there might be some misunderstanding and skirmishes. But that is what it is. Just misunderstanding and skirmishes.
Out of 40 lawmakers, 36 of them remain united. And the spokesperson of the Assembly, Mr. Stephen Ogundipe, representing Isolo Constituency 1, says the leadership of the All Progressives Congress must address the lingering issue at the State Assembly.
We are approached by our leaders that we should remain calm and take things easy until the approach. But we are shocked to see what is happening today. And we are still expecting them to come and tell us where we went wrong or what really went wrong. We won't take laws into our hands, just like I told the staffs that they should not take laws into their hands. But we all belong to different constituencies, and we have our mandate. And whatever has to happen, the leadership should speak with us, and not this charade that we are seeing. So I'm appealing to the leadership of our party that we cannot continue this way. We are all here, you can see us. These are honorable members, few of us that are not here are here. So anything that happens, they've taken us to court. And it is for us to let the process follow its due course.
Nothing is clear at the moment, as Mojisola Meranda has not resigned, neither has she been impeached as Speaker. What is, however, visible is the obvious crack in the wall of the Assembly, a division of the Lagos State chapter of the APC. Prominent party members must be running from pillar to post, trying to resolve.
Meanwhile, the Commissioner of Police in Lagos, Jimoh Moshood, says the routine personnel audit was behind earlier withdrawal of Speaker Mojisola Miranda's security details. Speaking with journalists at the police headquarters, Ikeja, Lagos, Mr. Moshood explains that the police details have now been restored. He adds that officers of the Lagos State Police Command are professionals and political happenings at the State Assembly as more personnel have been posted to protect life and property.
Periodic audit of police personnel attached to eminent personalities and group is a police statutorily laid down procedure which is not limited to Lagos State Command alone. This is to ensure that the police personnel are accounted for, including their firearms and other crime-fighting equipment in their possession. As I speak with you, the audit of the police personnel attached to Honorable Mojisola Miranda has been completed, and the former armed police personnel attached to her from the Lagos State Police Command have been returned back to her for her protection. It is pertinent to state that the ongoing police personnel audit has been on for several days now, and prominent personalities and individuals have been complying with the process. The exercise, once again, is not aimed or targeted at any individuals. There was application from Honorable Mudashiru Obasa on threat to his life and that of his family in the last few days. And it was on the basis of that that police personnel were approved to him for that purpose only. The Lagos State Police Command is not aware or in the know of how and when the office of the Speaker of Lagos State, Speaker of Lagos State House of Assembly was broken into. The Lagos State Police Command is neutral in the whole episode and will continue to do so to ensure law and order and public safety and security throughout the length and breadth of Lagos State.
Away from the crisis rocking the Lagos State House of Assembly now. Only homegrown policies can develop a country. That's according to the chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Mr. Zacchaeus Adedeji. He stated this at the ongoing House of Representatives public hearing on the 4 tax reform bills. In the meantime, the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal and Tax Reforms, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, says the inheritance tax contained in the Nigeria tax bill is not a new provision, as it has been in existence since independence. Our National Assembly correspondent Terry Ikumi reports.
Yet another full house as the public hearing of the House of Representatives on the 4 tax bills enters its second day. Submissions are received with participants highlighting areas of interest and concern to them.
The bill excluded tax waivers on profit from manufactured exports between 2019 and 2023. The value of manufactured export deteriorated from 6.7 billion to 1.6 billion, partly due to inadequate incentives for our exporters.
Do we really need these institutions? TEFPA, NASENI, and NIDA. Everything you look around the world, people are actually expanding their industrial base. Technology is important. There is no way you can now kill our own institutions that are supposed to make us export finished goods.
For the Nigeria Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, some provisions of the bill appear draconian.
In fact, it's as if the bill wants to challenge, in fact, it has challenged our constitution. So, if you look at section 68, 63, section 141, section 202, all of them speak the same language of supremacy of the bill to against any other bill. This is our military terms, and it should not be acceptable. The government has 2 free trade zones which they built. You are free to convert your own to export zones. But when you license people, collected $60,000 annually from them, and also $10,000 for each enterprise to pay. You take 1% FOB. You collect custom duty and VAT when they trade in the free trade zone in the municipal.
You produce the free trade zone. Anything you sell to custom area above 25%, we gave you liberty of 25%. Though the law says that when you produce there, you should export. But when you decide for any reason, whether there is scarcity or any reason, you want to sell, you can sell to the tune of 25% in custom area without any taxes. But any day you sell beyond that 25, you will be subjected as if you produce it within custom area.
There is no law today, not the NEPSA Act, not the Oil and Gas Act, no other law that says when you bring it to the custom territory, you can sell without paying taxes. And there's no country where they're doing that.
Mr. Oyedele goes further to address concerns around the inheritance tax.
This provision is not even new. It has been in our tax laws since independence. As we speak today, this provision is in the Personal Income Tax Act. This law was already in place when in 1979, the military introduced inheritance tax. If this was sufficient, they would not have introduced another law to impose inheritance tax.
So far, the controversial tax reform bills have been peacefully put through the legislative process, despite the heated opposition they received when they were first sent to Parliament by the President. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
The health system in Nigeria is a failure we must refuse to accept. Well, those are not my words. They're words from the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, who has made an appeal for urgent reforms in Nigeria's healthcare system. He declares that quality medical care is not a privilege, but a fundamental right of every Nigerian. At a public hearing on the Senate Committee on Secondary and Tertiary Health today on the establishment of national eye centers and orthopedic hospitals, Senator Akpabio, who was represented by the Deputy Senate Leader Oyelola Shiru, emphasized the Senate's commitment to ensuring accessible and efficient healthcare services for all Nigerians. Issues of mass exodus of medical professionals and medical tourism were also highlighted as challenges in the health sector. A pledge has been made by the European Union to be actively involved in finding solutions to the challenges bedeviling the Niger Delta region and end the agitations. Speaking in Abuja, the National Multi-Stakeholders Consultative Engagement, the head of Governance, Security and Migration section of the EU to Nigeria, Mr. Ruben Aguilera, says that there is a need for more strategic approach to tackle the problems.
Issues of agitations, criminality and violence are the focus of this national multi-stakeholder consultative engagement. Preventing agitations and violence in the Niger Delta region is brought to the front burner.
So we hope that the successes of this project can be consolidated. We hope that they can be expanded. Preventing criminality in the Niger Delta is a core goal, is something that we're all working for, whether from a security perspective, whether from a community building perspective, whether from a governance perspective, or whether from an environmental and climate change.
The implementation of the amnesty program, and we continue with this program. We continue being actively involved in trying to find the solutions to the challenges, to the difficulties, to the problems that the communities keep facing.
The need to address drivers of conflict to transform the region forms part of the discussion.
Over the years, our government has remained steadfast in the commitment to implementing initiatives and policies that foster peace, security, and development in the region.
Our ultimate goal is the well-being and prosperity of the people of the Niger Delta, particularly the youth, who are the key factors to peace building and to ensure that the environment is very secure for our unborn generation.
My point is this: these people are welcoming to development, and they are peace-loving people. Kindly ignore the conflict entrepreneurs that make a living from painting the Niger Delta as a crisis zone.
The National Counter-Terrorism Center assures stakeholders of a sustained approach to combat security threats from the area.
As you may be aware, piracy attacks in the Nigeria's maritime domain are no longer prevalent, as was the case previously. This development further reinforces Nigeria's commitment to effectively curb criminality in its territorial waters. Similarly, militancy and sea robberies have also reduced among the waterways due to both kinetic and non-kinetic measures in place to address the twin crimes.
The consultative engagement is aimed at addressing issues of development, peace, and security in the Niger Delta region.
In part two, after the break, the federal government has announced plans to regularize the country's electricity tariffs to address the disparities in tariffs between consumers in the country. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. A reminder of our main stories. Mudashiru Obasa shows up at the Lagos State House of Assembly complex, says he has resumed and remains Speaker of the Assembly. The chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal and Tax Reforms, Taiwo Oyedele, says the inheritance tax contained in the Nigeria tax bill is not a new provision, as it exists in tax laws since independence. Senate President Godswill Akpabio appeals for urgent reforms in the nation's health sector, and U.S. President Donald Trump hosts UK Prime Minister at the White House for critical talks on Ukraine. To politics now. One of Nigeria's leading civil society groups on election matters, Yaga Africa, is doubting the accuracy of the number of voters in the country's voter register as it launches its report on the reasoning behind low voter turnout during elections in the country. As a solution to this, the report recommends an urgent audit of Nigeria's voter register, the improvement of voter education, mobilization strategies, and the determination to combat misinformation and negative campaigns.
Findings on low voter turnout in Nigeria, conducted by Yaga Africa to find solutions to what many have described as a growing voter apathy in the country. Executive Director of Yaga Africa sets the ball rolling, drawing comparison of voter turnout among countries.
In places like Liberia and Sierra Leone, we've seen higher turnouts for elections, including Senegal. In fact, Ghana, what Ghana calls lower turnout compared to previous elections, is a high standard for Nigeria. Because in Nigeria, we have the lowest turnout of voters on the continent.
One of the lead researchers, a former national commissioner at the Independent National Electoral Commission, gives a highlight of their findings.
Some of the findings that are so interesting for us point not just to what we already know and think we should do, which is look closely at the register, but it's also very important for us the role of technology, which doesn't seem to have come out, as whether it is important, but also the persistence of some of those issues that we have also talked about.
The report presents several issues responsible for the persistent low voter turnout in Nigeria. These issues include inadequate voter education and mobilization, an over-bloated voter register, lack of confidence in the electoral system, disinformation and misinformation, among others. The researchers make some recommendations.
First, that the comprehensive audit of the voter register must be done. Two, that voter education campaigns must be improved upon. And ultimately, we say the voter turnout can only increase if people own the democratic process, if they are committed to it and they believe that it will lead to better governance.
Nigeria continues to record a decline in voter turnout from its peak in 2003, when 69% of voter turnout was recorded, to the lowest in 2023, which recorded 27% of voter turnout. Yaga Africa is hoping that findings and recommendations from this report will help to improve voter turnout in future elections.
While unemployment remains a challenge for Nigeria's youth, those in Lagos State can now rely on the collaboration between the King's Trust International and the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund to ease the burden in the state. Formerly known as the Prince's Trust International, the King's Trust International was founded by His Majesty King Charles III back in 2015 to tackle the global crisis of youth unemployment. Our correspondent Amarachi Ubani reports.
Every year, thousands of young Nigerians face the challenge of job seeking after university, with no hopes of being gainfully employed. Sometimes they need a push in the right direction, enrolling in internships that eventually lead to permanent employment, now provided through a collaboration between King's Trust International and the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund.
We all know, I think, that children coming out of school are not always ready for work, so getting employment skills, employability skills are really, really critical. It's those soft skills that people like me, frankly, learnt over many years by being in offices, but nowadays we understand them better, and we can actually teach them to people and help those young people be better ready to go into the workplace, be more productive earlier on.
We're launching today a new partnership to support young people into entry-level positions in Lagos State, working with a range of different delivery partners who will support young people to gain the core skills that they'll need for the world of work, communication skills, self-confidence, problem-solving, managing feelings, and so on, and then also some technical skills that they'll then take into different sectors, whether that's solar installation, catering, retail, hospitality. And then we've partnered with local employers who will provide work placements for these young people for up to 3 months. And then we hope take on the young people on a permanent basis.
This employability project is looking to upskill and look to train 2,000 youths in Lagos State across 2 core programs, get hired and get a job. And the whole idea is just to make sure that no one in Lagos State is left behind. Provided you are willing to learn, you're willing to upskill, this is an opportunity for you to plug in. And KTI have been kind enough, with the support of our Governor Sanwo-Olu, to ensure this project did come to light.
Creative and digital industries.
The journey begins with enrolling in vocational training centers funded by the Lagos State government, where they learn soft skills that boost their chances of internships in companies across the state for at least 3 months, at the end of which they will likely be absorbed into a more permanent arrangement. The Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, passionate about giving people real skills to make them better human beings, talks about the importance of cementing this partnership.
We need to do this with a lot of numbers, If we're just scratching 42,000 that you did last year in terms of aggregate employment, and you're doing 29%, in the creative industry, you're doing 16% or 19% in tourism, we need to be able to double on those numbers. And how for us to do it is to increase the budget that we need to put there, but we also need to look for partners. And partnership helps to both co-fund, both design programs, and both execute those programs. And that's why we're so excited with the King's Trusts, as a winning partner, as people that have also done this in various other jurisdictions, so they can look at us in the face and say that These are the skills we bring forward. These are the knowledge that we bring forward. These are the experiences that we've shared in other places that can help Lagos State Employment Trust Fund and help, all of the young people in Lagos to do it. And so you can see that we're not just here for photo ops, we're here for real big business.
Only about 2,000 young people will be beneficiaries of the program for now, and young people are encouraged to take advantage of this innovative opportunity. Amarachi Ubani, Channel Television News.
Let's turn our attention now to the power sector. There are plans by the federal government to regularize the country's electricity via addressing the disparities between consumers. The Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, announced this during the public presentation of the National Integrated Electricity and Nigeria Integrated Resource Plan in Abuja. Our correspondent, Dele Omoyeni, reports.
It's not just in Nigeria's power sector, but globally.
It's the official unveiling of the National Integrated Electricity Policy, a document designed to guide Nigeria's power sector towards universal electrification, inclusion, and sustainability. As part of efforts to ensure inclusivity, the Minister of Power announces plans by the federal government to look at the tariff again.
The key issue, which is the market liquidity and sector reforms, will still continue to focus on that. We'll look at the tariff again. I'm not saying that we're going to increase the tariff before I'm misquoted. We're going to look at the tariff and see how we can improve upon our modest achievement of last year. Not only to ensure that we grow the sector revenue, but to also ensure that we're able to invest more in revamping all these dilapidated infrastructures, so that infrastructure that actually carry the kind of reliable electricity that we envisage for the sector.
The document also features plans to address infrastructure in the sector, and the minister throws more light on the plan.
In terms of capitalizing investment into the sector, which we all know is what is required for this sector to move on. It's a sector that requires a lot of investments that will come in so many years. So last year, we were able to capitalize close to $2 billion into this sector. And this cuts across the conventional electricity sector and the alternative renewable energy subsector. So we are happy with this. But like you said, we're still scratching the surface.
According to the Transmission Company of Nigeria, the nation has only recorded partial collapse of the grid, and the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry explains how the policy will promote operational efficiency in the industry, as well as promote private sector investments.
The private sector plays a pivotal role in driving investment, innovation, and efficiency within the Nigeria's power sector. We look forward to thought-provoking discussions that will highlight key investment opportunities, identify challenges, and explore how the government can create a robust, transparent, and enabling environment to ensure these opportunities are fully optimized for sustainable growth and long-term impact.
The government hopes that this policy will also increase access to electricity for rural and underserved communities. Dele Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
Still ahead on the news at 10, federal government, states and local share about 1.7 trillion naira as revenue for the month of January. And that's in business news. Please join us again. Welcome back. We head to the courts now. A former acting accountant general of the Federation, Mr. Nnamdi Kanu, who is facing trial over alleged 1.9 billion naira fraud, has pleaded with the Federal High Court Abuja to give him time to negotiate with the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC. The ex-acting AGF, who is facing a 9-count charge, made the plea after the EFCC, through its lawyer, Mr. Ekele Iheanacho, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, told the court that he brought 5 more witnesses to testify in the matter. Though he was represented at the proceedings by his lawyer, Mr. Isidore Odenko, however, the defendant told the court that he has engaged the services of a senior advocate of Nigeria that will help him broker an out-of-court settlement of the case. Mr. Odenko noted that the matter proceeded to trial after the defendant's initial attempt to reach an agreement with the anti-graft agency failed. On his part, the EFCC's lawyer, Iheanacho, said that he was not opposed to the request by the defendant. Justice Chinyere Onwechiong of the Federal Capital Territory High Court Kuje in Abuja has granted bail to the former Executive Secretary of the National Health Insurance Scheme, Usman Yusuf, in the sum of 5 million naira with 2 sureties. While delivering the bail terms, Justice Onwechiong stated that the 2 sureties must provide proof of means of livelihood, whether business or civil service, as well as valid identification, and the addresses are to be verified by the prosecution or the court staff. Although the case was initially adjourned to April the 3rd, the date was vacated due to the Salah break, which falls within that period. The court subsequently adjourned the case to May the 15th, 2025 for trial. Mr. Yusuf is facing a 5-count charge of alleged fraud involving the sum of 90,439,178 million in the case. Well, additionally, he allegedly awarded 10.1 million training contract to the foundation linked to him, with only half of the intended beneficiaries participating in the program. The EFCC arraigned Mr. Yusuf on February the 3rd, 2025, but he pleaded not guilty to all 5 counts when the charges were read to him. We continue with the news at 10 now as we head over to Abuja studios, where Millicent Walker is standing by to give us more. Hello, Millicent.
Thank you, Anne. Good to see you. We begin here with the Federal Capital Territory Internal Revenue Service. They say they will begin the enforcement of penalties amounting to 500,000 naira to employers of labor who fail to submit their employees' annual tax returns for the year 2024. The acting chairman of the agency, Mr. Michael Ango, made this known in Abuja while addressing journalists and staff of the agency during its annual sensitization campaign on compliance of tax obligations by residents. Mr. Ango states that the non-compliance to tax obligations by residents of the FCT impedes the development of the metropolis, as the funds accrued by his agency are allocated for infrastructural development, among others.
For us, we have certain obligations, which is that we have filing deadlines. The first filing deadline for the year was 31st of January 2025, where the employer's annual returns was due. And I must say to you that we got very significant numbers of persons who filed. And we are in the process of actually commending every single company that filed their annual returns, their employer annual returns. We're going to write them a letter and commend them. And for those who do not file, we're also going to write them a letter, but this is not a letter of commendation. This is actually, we're going to be sending out penalties for non-compliance and then giving them a chance to comply. We have another deadline coming up in another 30 days or so, which is the individual annual returns. The law mandates every person, whether in employment or not, to file their annual income tax returns by the 31st of March every year. And this is one of the things that we hope this roadshow will be able to achieve. We want to see compliance as high as possible. For the persons who did not file their returns for 2025, the employer annual returns, the law sets a penalty of 500,000 naira. And so we've already written to a number of them. We're going to write to every single one of them. So the minimum penalty is 500,000.
And we're back in the court where the detained leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, has petitioned the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Kudirat Kekereekun, urging her to direct the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, Justice John Soho, to reassign his case to another judge with proper jurisdiction. In a letter to the CJN, Mr. Kanu's legal team, led by Aloy Ejimako, argues that Justice Binta Nyako, who is currently presiding over the case, had already recused herself following Mr. Kanu's allegations of bias. Kanu is facing 7 counts of terrorism-related charges brought against him by the federal government. Mr. Ejimako argues that the legal principles dictate that once a judge recuses himself, he is disqualified from further involvement in the case. He urged the CJN's administrative intervention to ensure that the case is reassigned. Mr. Ejimako also stressed that public perception and judicial integrity are at stake, warning that assigning a case to a judge who had recused themselves could erode confidence in the judiciary. He further revealed that Mr. Kanu had lodged a formal complaint
against Justice Nyako with the National Judicial Council on January 14, 2025, and that the petition was still pending. It further urged the CJN to use her authority to ensure a fair trial, either by transferring the case to another judge in Abuja or to a court in the southeast. Now, are you wondering if it's possible to have a radio station that serves good music, not just that, information on new products, business insights, and the latest trend in innovation and technology? Well, Konga FM, which recently made its debut on the airwaves at 103.7 FM, provides the answer to your questions. Broadcasting from Lagos and streaming globally via kongarafm.com, the station is setting new standards in radio broadcasting. A major highlight on the station is its Shop on Radio, a partnership with Konga.com, which started February 24th, 2025. Now, this feature lets listeners buy products live on air without heavy internet use, offering exclusive discounts and same-day delivery in Lagos. Head of Konga FM, Ifoma Ajimobi, says the initiative integrates commerce with entertainment, transforming how Africans shop via radio. Powered by AI technology, Konga FM is praised for its professionalism, unique content, and impact-driven approach, featuring gospel sessions, discussions, and hit music. Now that is something different to look forward to. It's back to Lagos, where Dominic Iwiwu is standing by with business news.
Thank you, Millicent. On business news, the federal, state, and local governments have shared 1.703 trillion naira as January 2025 revenue. This was announced at the February Federation Accounts Allocation Committee meeting in Abuja. From the total revenue, the federal government received 552.591 billion naira, states got 590.614 billion naira, and local governments were allocated 434.567 billion naira. Oil-producing states received 125.284 billion naira as derivation revenue. Revenue from VAT, petroleum profit tax, companies' income tax, excise duty, import duty, and CET levies increased significantly in January. However, earnings from the electronic money transfer levy and oil and gas royalty declined. As the Senate concludes its two-day public hearing on the proposed tax reform bill, Nigeria's attention is now shifted to the House of Representatives for the next phase of hearing and recommendation. According to the Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rewani, the issue of compliance by taxpayers remains a major part of some concerns over the tax reform. Speaking on our Business Morning program, Mr. Rewani recommended that the concerns over tax collection should be looked into amid ongoing negotiations.
Nigerians are probably the least tax compliant set of people in this region, because only less than 8 or 9% of the Nigerian people pay taxes in it. Therefore, and that's income taxes. Therefore, the country is left with no choice but to use what we call the benefit approach to taxes, which are easy to collect and easy to administer. For people to come out and say, please do not introduce or do not increase value-added taxes, when you know that there are lots of exemptions from these taxes, makes it, it's quite confusing. So I think that we are just going through the process of negotiations. Unions are making their voices heard. Traditional rulers are saying some things there and others. So I think that I'm quite confident that in the next few days, the tax reform will go through, subject to the amendments that are being discussed. And therefore, we move on and ensure that, one, the incidence of tax falls on those who can afford it, and two, that the amount of tax collected actually increases, thereby increasing our tax to GDP ratio to where it is. We are way below the average across the world. In fact, much lower than most of our African countries and peers.
The Nigerian Economic Summit Group, NESG, has attributed the country's 3.84 GDP growth in 2024 to the gains from the federal government's policy reforms. According to the NESG, key policies like fuel subsidy removal, exchange rate unification, and tax reforms contributed to boosting investor confidence. NESG expects continued growth in 2025, but warns of risks from inflation, exchange rate instability, and security challenges. It recommends strengthening power sector reforms and ensuring policy consistency. To some company news, Nestle Nigeria PLC has reported a loss before tax of 221.6 billion naira for the 2024 financial year, a 113% increase from 2023. The company attributes the loss to rising finance costs, mainly due to naira devaluation. Despite the full-year loss, Nestle rebounded in Q4 2024, posting a 19.7 billion naira profit after tax, a sharp turnaround from the 36.4 billion naira loss in Q4 2023. Revenue also grew by 75.25% year-on-year, reaching 958.8 billion naira, driven by strong domestic sales. The domestic equities market sustains negative sentiments amid the earnings season. Willie Bong has the highlights.
Welcome to the stock market report. There's still no sign of a green close at the NGX as the negative sentiments continue to persist. Now let's see where the all-share index is at the close of trade today. We see it dropping further by 0.11%. All-share index is still at 107,000. We're hoping that doesn't change. We see the market cap still at 67 trillion naira. We're hoping there's no reversal. Speaking of a reversal, there appears to be a reversal of fortune for O&O. Investors bought the dip, taking advantage of lower prices. We see it climbing today, up 10% to close at 52 naira 80 kobo. We also see PZ Cousins and Honeywell Flour on that list. Remember, it's a zero-sum game in the equities market, and where one stock gain is another stock's loss. Featuring on the top three losers list, we have Fitson, Ecobank Transnational Incorporated, and we have Guinea Insurance. This is the penultimate trading day. We're hoping there is a reversal tomorrow and the market closes in the green. Those are the highlights for today. Will Ibong signing out.
And that's it on business news. It's back to Anne for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Dominic. U.S. President Donald Trump says he is inclined to back United Kingdom's Cadiz Island deal. He made this known during UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's visit to the White House today. Here's Simon Pusey with international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5.
Israel has completed forensic tests confirming the identities of 4 dead Israeli hostages whose bodies were handed over by Hamas in exchange for the release of Palestinian prisoners. On Wednesday night, without ceremony, Hamas passed 4 coffins to the Red Cross from Gaza. The handover cleared the way for the delayed release of more than 600 Palestinian prisoners and detainees. Oscar-winning U.S. actor Gene Hackman, his wife Betsy Arakawa, and their dog have been found dead at their home in Santa Fe in New Mexico. In a career spanning more than 6 decades, Hackman received 2 Academy Awards for his work on the movies The French Connection and Unforgiven. A statement from the Santa Fe County Sheriff in New Mexico said, "We can confirm that both Gene Hackman and his wife were found deceased Wednesday afternoon at their residence on Sunset Trail. They do not believe that foul play was a factor." Hackman was 95 and his wife a classical pianist, 64. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will meet U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington on Friday to sign an agreement on sharing his country's mineral resources. Zelensky has described the bilateral deal as preliminary and said he wants further agreements which include U.S. security guarantees to deter renewed Russian aggression. But Mr. Trump said the U.S. would not provide guarantees beyond very much, saying the responsibility should instead fall to Europe. Mr. Trump also seemingly ruled out the prospect of Ukraine becoming a NATO member, one of Zelensky's long-held ambitions.
President Zelensky is going to be coming on Friday. That's now confirmed, and we're going to be signing an agreement which will be a very big agreement. And I want to thank Howard and Scott for the job you guys did in putting it together. You really did an amazing job. And that'll be on rare earth and other things. And as you know, we're in for probably $350 billion. Europe is in for $100 billion. And that's a big difference. So we're in for probably 3 times as much, and yet it's very important to everybody, but Europe's very close. We have a big ocean separating us, so it's very important for Europe, and they hopefully will. NATO you could forget about. I think that's probably the reason the whole thing started.
North Korea has sent more soldiers to Russia and redeployed others to the front line in the western Kursk region. That's according to South Korea's intelligence agency. It said the exact number of extra troops sent was unknown, but military officials quoted in South Korean media have said they believed it was at least 1,000. Neither Moscow nor Pyongyang have confirmed the new deployment. Leaked audio instructions by Greek rescue coordinators have cast further doubt on Greece's official version of events in the hours before a migrant boat sinking with up to 650 people on board. The Adriana went down in the early hours of June the 14th, 2023 in international waters, but within Greece's rescue zone after leaving Libya days earlier. At least 40 Uyghurs have been deported to China, the Thai authorities have confirmed, despite warnings from rights groups that they face possible torture and even death. The group is thought to have been flown back to China's Xinjiang region on Thursday after being held for 10 years in Bangkok. China has been accused of committing crimes against humanity and possibly genocide against the Uyghur population and other mostly Muslim ethnic groups in the northwest region of Xinjiang. Beijing denies all the allegations. Catholics gathered to pray for the health of the Pope beneath the steps of St. Peter's Basilica for a third night, as his doctors said his condition showed further slight improvement. Cardinal Giovanni Battisteri led the prayers. Nuns dangling rosary beads, tourists and student priests were among those who joined the gentle incantation of the rosary in the Vatican. The nightly gatherings began on Monday after the 88-year-old's health took a dramatic dip at the weekend. And King Mohammed VI has asked Moroccans to abstain from performing the Muslim rite of slaughtering sheep during Eid al-Adha this year due to a sharp drop in the country's herd. The shortages are blamed on 7 years of drought. Eid al-Adha, which falls in June, commemorates the willingness of Prophet Ibrahim, or Abraham, to sacrifice his son on God's command.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon, and welcome to Sports. We begin in Abuja, where the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS Commission, has unveiled the prize money incentive for runners participating in the 2025 ECOWAS Abuja International Marathon holding on Saturday, March 1st. At a press conference held earlier today, ECOWAS Director of Youth and Sports, Francis Njoagwani, revealed that the first runner to cross the finish line will receive $1,000, with the second-place finisher earning $500. We hear the initiative is aimed at encouraging regional participation and celebrating homegrown talent in the continent. And Mr. Njogwani says the goal of ECOWAS is to achieve the World Athletics Gold Label status within the next 4 years, positioning the ECOWAS Abuja International Marathon among the most prestigious road races globally. Egypt's Umar Assar has dethroned Nigeria's Quadri Aruno as champion of the ITTF African Cup in Tunisia earlier today. It was a tight contest between the rivals, with the Egyptian triumphing 4-3, denying Aruno his 6th title in the continent's biggest table tennis competition. Aruno, alongside Umar, secured tickets for the World Cup in Macau, China in April. Over 50 players comprising 29 men and 21 women participated in the 3-day tournament, which ended today. away from table tennis, let's bring you up to speed with MPFL games played earlier today, as we have the results here on your screen. Brendel Insurance beat Lagos-based Ikorodu City 2-1 in March Day 26 at the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium in Benin City to pick up just their 10th win of the season. Stanley Okorum gave the Benin Arsenal the opener in the 52nd minute. The lead lasted just 2 minutes with Ikorodu City's Shola Adeloni responding. Uche Collins handed the host the win in the 69th minute. The game between Rivers United and Katsina United was called off at halftime following heavy rainfall in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital, with the hosts 1-0 up. Second half resumes tomorrow at 9 a.m. Still talking club football, Napoli director Giovanni Mana has revealed the club is working on a solution for Nigeria striker Victor Osimhen's future. Well, Osimhen was wanted by Chelsea and Saudi Pro League club Al Ahly on deadline day, but ended up securing a loan move to Turkish club Galatasaray, where he has scored 20 goals in 26 matches. Osimhen is due to return to Napoli at the end of the season, where he will have 1 year remaining on his deal with the Serie A club, but Mana says they must find a solution as quickly as possible so as to avoid what happened last year. What a performance from the 19-year-old American. And that's sports. I'm Kelly Egiga. Back to Anne.
Thank you, Kelly. And the main news again. Mudashiru Obasa has showed up at the Lagos State House of Assembly complex. The impeached speaker said he has resumed and remained Speaker of the Assembly. The chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal and Tax Reforms, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, has said that the inheritance tax contained in the Nigeria tax bill is not a new provision, as it exists in tax laws since independence. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Good night and stay safe.